Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and today we're going to be learning how to play the two-player deck building game Star Realms Academy, being released by Wise Wizard Games. Star Realms Academy comes with all of the components that you see here, including one game board, 2 player boards, 2 reference cards, 12 total starting cards separated into 2 starting decks, 48 shop cards, 6 combat tokens, 16 coin tokens, and 30 health tokens. To begin setup, place the game board in the middle of the table. Then make sure to shuffle all of the 48 shop cards and place them on the indicated space of the game board. Then turn over the top 5 cards to fill the empty spaces to create the shop row. Next, place the supply of coin and combat tokens within reach of both players. Then each player will take a player board and place it in front of themselves. Each player should receive a reference card, 15 health tokens on their player board, and their starting deck of 6 cards, which should be shuffled and placed near their player board. Each player will draw 3 cards from their deck as their starting hand. You can look at your own cards, but not at your opponent's. And then the oldest player will be the first player to take a turn. Whoever ends up going second will get to place 1 coin on their player board. After this setup has been done, you're ready to play. The goal of Star Realms Academy is to be the first player to reduce your opponent's health to 0 by removing all of their health tokens. You do this by drawing and playing cards from your deck of cards that represents your Space Armada, purchasing new cards from the row to make your deck stronger, and activating abilities by playing cards on your turn. Beginning with the oldest player, and then alternating, a player will take a turn. And on a player's turn, they can take a number of different actions, as many times as they would like. All of the actions that can be taken on a player's turn are listed here on your reference card, and once again you can take these actions multiple times and in any order that you'd like. We'll look at each one of the actions in detail now. The majority of a player's turn will be used playing cards from their hand. There are a few different types of cards that you can play, but they'll be separated into a category of ships or bases. When played, ships have a primary ability that has to be used when you play the card. For instance, when you play this card, you would gain 1 coin. Anytime you gain a coin, you would place it on one of the empty spaces of your player board that can hold coins. Each player can have a maximum of 8 coins on their player board, and these coins can be spent right away or saved for future turns if you'd like. Some ships will generate combat when they're played. Combat can be used to directly attack your opponent. So for instance, if a player played this card, they could immediately remove 1 health from their opponent's player board. This is great for them because that means they're closer to winning. Some cards, when played, will have more than one effect as their primary ability. And if that's the case, you get to do both things. For instance, when this card is played, you would gain 2 coins and you would get to draw a card directly from your deck. This is very helpful because this gives you more cards to play on your turn beyond your starting 3. There's also a section on some cards and bases that you buy that have a particular faction symbol and another ability listed. This is known as an ally ability. If you play cards that have an ally ability listed, you can activate that ability as long as there's at least one other card out that has the matching symbol. So for instance, if we just played this card by itself, we could just do the top part. We couldn't activate the bottom ally ability. But now that there's a separate card that has the same symbol out, you could activate both ally abilities since those 2 cards are in play. This is why it can be really nice sometimes to buy cards that have matching symbols. They can trigger abilities on their ally cards. Activating a card's ally ability is another thing that you can do as an action on your turn. You can only activate each ally ability once per turn. Some cards, when played, will also allow you to heal and regain health. For instance, this Federation Shuttle will heal 1 health for the player if they can activate its ally ability. When you do this, you can simply gain one of the tokens that you've lost and place it back in one of the empty spaces for health on your player board. A player can never gain more than 15 health. Some cards have a horizontal picture and are known as bases. You can tell a card is a base because it will have a shield marker in its bottom right corner. When a player plays a base in their play area, it sticks around from turn to turn. It doesn't get discarded at the end of their turn. Having bases out will guard your health. Anytime a player wants to attack you and you have a base out, they have to first put combat tokens on your base until you have enough combat tokens to defeat the base. So for instance, if this player had this base, the opposing player would have to do 3 damage before this base's health would fully be taken out. If a player is able to place combat tokens on a base equal to its health, this base would be defeated and it would be placed in its player's discard pile. That means that the base can come out again and help defend you in the future. It's also important to note that bases also have abilities that they can activate once per turn. This can be done as an action, just like playing cards or activating an ally ability. Base's primary abilities can be used anytime on your turn, but they can only be used once per turn. So for instance, if this player played this base or had it out from a previous turn, they could generate 3 combat towards their opponent once per turn. Would allow a player to draw another card, and it has an ally ability that can be triggered by having another one of these cards out. This works just like ships. And the last type of action that a player can take on their turn is to use coins to buy cards from the shop row. Players can spend the coins that they have in their supply at any time on their turn to buy cards from the shop row. So for instance, the ram would cost 1 coin to buy. To purchase the card, a player would take the coin from their board, place it back in the general supply, and then this card would immediately be placed in their discard pile. Whenever a card is purchased from the deck, it's immediately replaced in the shop row with the top card from the deck. The player could, if they wanted to and could afford it, buy the card that's just turned face up. They can't afford that card, however, with their 1 coin. But if they wanted to, they could buy this Federation shuttle, which they could afford, or they could stop spending and save this coin for a future turn. At the end of a player's turn, after they're done taking all the actions they can or want to, any ships that were in play will be discarded and put into the player's discard pile, but any bases that are in play will stick around. And it's important to note that any damage on a player's base will stay from turn to turn until the base is fully defeated. At the end of a player's turn, they'll also draw 3 new cards from their deck as their hand for the next turn. If a player ever needs to draw cards and there aren't enough cards in their deck to fully complete their hand, they'll shuffle all of the cards that are in the discard pile to create a new deck and continue drawing until they have 3. Now let's take a look at a quick example turn. This player has their hand of 3 cards. They decide to play these 2 scouts, which will gain them 2 coins. They then decide that they want to activate their base's primary ability, which will allow them to draw 1 card from the top of their deck. They've drawn an Imperial Fighter, which they'll play out in their play area as well. Since the player now has 2 cards with this symbol out in play, they can activate both of these cards' ally abilities. They'll activate this card's ability first, drawing another card. This gives them another scout that they can play, which will gain them 1 more coin. And finally, they have a Viper. They now also have a total of 5 combat from all of the cards that they've played out on their turn. They'll use this combat to attack their opponent. The player has a base out, which acts like a shield, so they have to use the first 3 combat to attack the player's base, and then the remaining 2 can go towards the opponent's health, removing 2 health tokens. The defeated base would go in this player's discard pile. To finish their turn, this player decides that they would like to buy cards. They'll spend their 4 coins to buy one of the survey ships. This goes directly to their discard pile and is replaced immediately with a new card. Players will continue taking turns back and forth until one player reduces their opponent's health to 0. The last player standing will be the winner. Alright everybody, that was our video. Hopefully it was helpful and hopefully it was informative. If you still have any questions at all about how to play the game, please comment below or you can email me directly at thediceyreview@gmail.com and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you if I can. As always, if you enjoy the content that we're putting out, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon to be notified whenever we put out new videos in the future. Alright, thanks so much for watching everybody, and until next time, I'll see you at the table.